Hi, my name is Katherine Siochi, and I play the harp with the Kansas City Symphony. I've been playing the harp for about 16 years, and this is just my first season playing with the symphony. Today I'm going to share a little bit more about the harp with you. So the first question is, what family does the harp belong to? And the harp is actually very unique in that it doesn't really neatly fit into any one instrument family. So the obvious choice is that it's part of the string family because, as you can see, it has many strings, 47 strings to be exact. And you can also see that there are different colors of strings on the harp. There are red ones, and the red strings are all of the C notes, and there are also black ones, and all of the black strings are the Fs. And then everything else is clear, and the colored strings just act as sort of a guideline so that you know where you're playing. So it's part of the string family because it has strings, but I think it functions very differently from the way the rest of all of the other string instruments do, where they play together in a section, and they also play with a bow. We pluck the strings with our fingertips, so it creates a very different sound from, say, a violin or a cello. And the attack of the note, because we pluck it with our finger, is a lot more immediate. So for that reason, I think of it almost more as a percussion instrument because the attack is very quick and precise. I think most similar to the piano, which also doesn't really fit into a neat category because it has strings on the inside, but hammers that hit the strings in a percussive way. So the harp is part of the string and the percussion family, in my opinion. The harp also creates its own very unique sound. It doesn't act as part of a big section like other string instruments do. Most of the time, there's only one harp being used in the orchestra. Sometimes in larger orchestral pieces, you'll see two harps playing, and very occasionally in really big pieces like a Wagner opera, there can be up to 6 harps, but that's pretty rare. Usually you'll just see 1 or 2 harps. What is the harp made of? So this harp is made of Sitka spruce from the Pacific Northwest, and this particular model is very special because you can see it's very shiny. It's covered in 23 karat gold leaf. The harp is a very large instrument, so it has many different parts, and I'll bring the camera a little bit closer now so I can show you each of these parts. Here at the top, this curved part is called the neck. A little bit lower along here, this is called the body of the harp, and this surface here is the soundboard. This is where the sound mostly comes out of. Then looking at the bottom, we have the bass, and these are called the feet on the front and the back, and also the pedals, which I'll come back to in a minute because they're very complicated. This really tall pillar is called the column, and at the top here we have the crown. Not all harps have a crown, but this one is special, so it has a crown. And then if we go to this side, you can see pins here. These are the tuning pins, and this is how you tune the harp. We have a tuning key here. You basically attach it to the pin, and you can rotate it up, forward, or back to make the note, adjust it to make it flat or sharp. And we have to do that on all 47 strings before every rehearsal or concert. So it takes a little while. We have to get there early to do that. Now I'll explain the pedals to you. So the harp has 7 foot pedals, which most people aren't aware of because you can't usually tell that they're there when you're watching a performance. Each foot pedal, it represents a different note. D, C, B, E, F, G, A. And if you look more closely, you'll see that each pedal has 3 notches: top, middle, and lower. Now each of these 3 notches enables us to change the pitch of a particular note. So the top setting is flat, the middle one is natural, and the bottom one is sharp. Right now I'm moving the D pedal, so if you listen to the note while I move the pedal, right now all the D strings on the harp are D flat. Now if I move it to the middle setting, which is natural, you'll hear they all change to D natural, and the bottom makes it sharp, so now it's D sharp. So that's how we get different chromatic pitches on the harp and change keys and stuff like that. Right now, all pedals are in flat. So if I were to play a scale up the harp, a glissando up the harp, it would sound like this. But we can change the sound of even playing the same strings. We can change the sound by moving certain pedals. So if I put the B and the E into natural, for example, we get a totally different sound. That's called a pentatonic scale. Most of the time, to create sound on the harp, we pluck it using our fingertips with every finger except for the pinky. The pinky is too short, so we actually only play with 4 fingers on each hand. You can pluck one string at a time or multiple strings at the same time to create chords. And probably the most typical thing that people associate with the harp is glissandos. And glissando is what we call it when we run our fingers quickly up and down the strings like this. Another cool thing we can do is harmonics, and a harmonic is created by finding the center point of the string. So basically you divide the string exactly in half, and we put part of our hand on that to stop off the sound, and it basically cuts the length of the string in half. So when I play it, this is the normal note, not as a harmonic, and this is a harmonic. So it sounds 1 octave higher, like this note. But you'll notice it also kind of changes the quality of the note and makes it ring a little bit more and sound more floaty. This particular harp I've owned for about 3 years, and I also own another harp that I've had for about 8 years. Unlike with other string instruments, the harp actually gets worse as it gets older. It doesn't increase in value with age. So I would say generally after about 20 years or so, harps start to become a little bit less desirable in their sound and the way they feel when you play them. I think probably the prime years of a harp are maybe when it's about 3 or 5 years old, because then it's still very new and the tension is enough that it doesn't feel too loose and floppy like older harps can feel. But it's also not too tight, because when you have a brand new harp, the tension of the string is very high and it is actually physically harder to play. So after a few years, I think is kind of the sweet spot for how a harp sounds and also how it feels to play. One of my favorite orchestral pieces that features the harp is the ballet Swan Lake by Tchaikovsky, which we were lucky enough to just play with the symphony, and it was a lot of fun. And it has this really nice harp cadenza in the middle of it, and Tchaikovsky kind of revolutionized the use of harp in his ballet music. And in this particular ballet, Swan Lake, he uses the harp to represent the fluttering of swans' wings. So I'll play now for you the cadenza from Swan Lake. favorite solo pieces to play on the harp is actually a piano piece originally that I arranged for the harp, and it's a Chopin Nocturne. I really loved Chopin's music growing up. I listened to a lot of the nocturnes, recordings of the nocturnes on the piano, so I really fell in love with his music then, and I wanted to find a way to play it on my instrument, the harp. So this is my transcription of the B-flat minor Nocturne, Opus 9, number 1 by Chopin. Was piano music, but I'll show you a close-up of what some harp music looks like, and you'll see it actually looks a lot similar to piano music. The bass clef generally plays the left hand, and the treble clef usually plays the right hand. So this is a harp piece, a piece specifically written for harp. And I'll show you here. You can see it looks pretty much like piano music, but the one piece of information that is actually different that we need, it's very important, are these letters written in here. See these groups of letters with naturals and sharps? These are our pedal markings. So we have to write into all of our music the exact spot where we need to move the pedals and which pedal we move. So you'll see sometimes we have to move 2 pedals at once, one in the left foot and one in the right foot. And other times we only have to move 1 pedal at a time. But it's really important that we have this marked in because it's just as important as playing all of the correct notes. If we don't have the correct pedals written in, then the strings won't sound in the correct pitches. Thanks for letting me tell you a little bit about the harp today. I've included some of my favorite pieces for the harp in links in the comments, and I hope you enjoy listening to them. I hope you get to come hear the Kansas City Symphony again soon when we're back in Hellsberg Hall making music for all of you. Thank you.